Chester Bryers sat back in his chair and let the newspaper fall to his lap. The nearby fire did little to warm his old bones, although, truth be told, he had shuffled himself far closer to it than was safe. Somehow the sound of wood cracking and the coal shifting periodically was comforting to him. A thick woolen blanket lay over his thin legs. Old man's legs, he knew, for he had no illusions that was what he was now. An old man, and one that had seen many incredible things happen in his lifetime. On the face of it, the news he had just read in the Times should not have caused him to be so surprised, but it had caused such a change in him that it was some moments before he was able to compose himself enough to be able to pick the paper back up and continue to read the rest of the article. "Is everything all right, Mr. Bryers?" said a kindly voice to his right, and he turned and peered over the top of his glasses to see Nurse Carter leaning over him with her usual facial expression present, somehow both caring and yet also patronizing, and her trolley of pills and medicines close at hand. He wondered if it were time for him to have any of those medicines himself, or if she were just inquiring after him. He had not realized that he hadn't answered the nurse until she asked again. "Mr. Bryers," she said, moving a little closer, "are you quite well?" "Perfectly well, thank you," Bryers said with a little more irritation than was perhaps fair. "I'm not quite ready to be put out to pasture just yet, my dear." Nurse Carter stood a little straighter, her face showing her lack of appreciation for the slight tone she had heard in his voice. "I'm sure that I don't know what you mean, Mr. Bryers," she said. "I just saw you had dropped your newspaper and came over to see if you were a little under the weather." The Masterson Hall home for retired servicemen in which he now resided was many things, and offered no shortage of benefits for which he was grateful. But a little peace and quiet to do what he wanted without having someone like Nurse Carter watching him like a hawk was something that was hard to find. He supposed he should appreciate being there at all. After all, there were far too many people who had no such luck and who lived their final days in conditions that did not bear thinking about. Except it was nothing to do with luck, he knew. It was all about money. He could afford to live at Masterson Hall because of the fact that he had a good deal more money than most people, and he knew that he only had that money because he had been bequeathed it by his late employer. Sebastopol. It all came back to him, he thought, and his mind returned back to where it was when he had first seen the article in the newspaper. What Sebastopol might have made of the news item, he wondered. "Mr. Bryers," said Nurse Carter rather more forcefully, "do I need to call Dr. Williams to come and see you?" Bryers's mind returned to the present and focused his attention back on the nurse. No need, he chuckled, although better-naturedly than he had responded a moment ago. "I'm merely thinking of old times and friends long gone." Nurse Carter all but rolled her eyes at hearing this. She heard little else from the old folks in her care, and hoped she was not about to be subjected to another war story or tall tale of adventure that could not possibly be true. She liked Mr. Bryers. She could not say otherwise. But he was one to spin a yarn about supposed crimes he had helped solve and an enigmatic private detective that he had worked for years ago. Nurse Carter had tried to explain to Mr. Bryers on several occasions that he was getting confused and that the only private detective was in the pages of Sherlock Holmes stories, and perhaps Mr. Bryers had read a few too many of those stories than was good for him.